Good.
Okay.
Well, it's just a few minutes after 4, so I think we're going to get started. And welcome everyone to our advocacy webinar, Raise Your Voice. We're so glad that you could be with us today and made the time to join us. Excuse me. I am Kirsten Millar, and I am the Fund and Policy Development Manager here at the Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation. And I am also joined with one of our wonderful board members, Marilyn Miner. She is both an extraordinary advocate and a wonderful volunteer for VBCF. And she's going to share some more of her experiences with advocacy later in the presentation. But I'd like her to introduce herself if she would.
Sure. Hi, everyone. I can hear an echo. I don't know why. But yeah, my name is Marilyn Miner. I am a breast cancer survivor. I was originally diagnosed back in 2014. Once I finished treatment, I started to meet with the Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation to be a volunteer and got involved very quickly and actively in participating as an advocate. And I'll share more of my experience a little bit later. It's been probably one of the most rewarding things I've done. I didn't ask to be a part of this sorority, fraternity, if you will, but I am making the most of what has been given to me. So hopefully you will feel the same way once you listen to the other information we have to share.
Great, thank you. So our plan for the webinar today is that I'm going to give a brief overview of the Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation, give you a little more information about us, and then also talk about specifically about our advocacy work and how you can get involved. And then Marilyn is going to share her experiences as a advocate for us and also for the National Breast Cancer Coalition. And I should say at the end, we will take questions, so please feel free to type in the Q&A or chat box, and we will do those at the end of the session. So who we are. This year, 2021, happens to be our 30th anniversary. We were founded in 1991 by a group of 5 women who met in a support group at MCV here in Richmond. They were angry about the lack of progress and local resources around breast cancer. And so they founded VBCF with the mission to educate, advocate, and eradicate. One of the first advocacy events that they put on was a Mother's Day rally down at the state capitol. And this picture that you see here is an artist rendering, paying homage to that first Mother's Day rally and all the other grassroots events that we've had over the years since then. We are not affiliated with a national organization. We are sort of homegrown and grassroots here in Virginia. All that we serve Virginians with breast cancer and those that care about them. And we're a real small staff. We have 5 staff total with 3 full-time and 2 part-time. So a lot of our work is done with the help of great volunteers and also volunteer advocates, which we hope you will choose to become after this webinar. So in terms of our education, we have a lot of free resources that are available to any Virginian that needs them. We have educational materials that go out across the state every year to organizations and churches and businesses who want to share information about breast cancer with their audiences. I think in October, we just become like a mail house. We have so many boxes going out of here, and it's wonderful because it really helps raise awareness and accurate information out to folks. We also do a lot of presentations around the state, again, to churches and civic groups and at health fairs. Some of the pictures here show some of the events that our staff and volunteers go to and share the resources. And we also send out free newly diagnosed information packets. There's a picture of one there on the corner, and that has information for those newly diagnosed who may need support groups in their area, resources about finances, talking with their doctor about treatment options and those sorts of things. And all of these resources are free and available to anyone in the state. Oh, and I should also mention that last year in 2020, we launched a set of educational webinars such as this one that are available on our website. Some of the topics that we looked into were nutrition and cancer, and also sexual intimacy during and after breast cancer. You can go to our website to find out all those. So in terms of our advocacy, we work both at the state level, at the General Assembly, and with our Virginia legislators there, and also at the national level in Congress. And when we are looking at what kinds of policies and legislation that we're going to support, we sort of use these goals that you see here as sort of the framework for what we'll consider. We support policies for Virginians in all stages of their breast cancer journey. And that includes the beginning, screening, diagnosis, but also towards the end, treatment, survivorship, and end-of-life care. We support legislation that enables Virginians to receive breast cancer treatment and screening regardless of insurance status or ability to pay. We promote research initiatives aimed at understanding and eradicating breast cancer, and we support policies aimed at breast cancer risk reduction. So those sort of broad goals are what help us decide what sort of things we're going to look at. So we, as I said, we do both state and national level advocacy. And to give you sort of an idea of what that means, at the state level, we monitor and look at what kinds of legislation may be coming up in the General Assembly that relates to breast cancer, and also broadly healthcare policy in general, like insurance issues, prescription drug access, and some of those things that would impact someone with breast cancer. So every year, and not this current year with COVID, but most years, we have an in-person state breast cancer advocacy day. And it's a day where we volunteer advocates go with us down to the state capitol. We make appointments with our legislators and go talk with them about our priority legislation. And to give you a sense of what that looks like, we don't expect everyone to be an expert on all these issues. We provide an orientation and some training around, how to talk with your legislator and what the issues are and sort of the background sort of talking points and things that you should bring up. We also, though, provide information packets to leave behind with legislators so that they can look at more of the details. And I say all that to just let you know that, one of the things that's most important about meeting with your legislators is just making a personal connection. They are they're your legislator and represent you. And, it's great to have a connection with them so that they know the next time they're thinking about these issues, they have perhaps your story in mind or a connection with you in mind. And most of the time, advocates go in groups to meet with their legislators so that you're, not by yourself. And as I said, we provide an orientation and some training around our issues. In years past, we've had the Secretary of Health and Human Resources come and speak to the group. We've had a representative from the Commonwealth Institute, which is an organization here in Richmond that works on state policy issues. The experts to sort of come and answer questions and get us ready for our meetings. So these are just some pictures of past events that we've had. In addition to that state advocacy day, we also, VBCF as an organization, participates in state level coalitions where we sort of join together with groups that are like-minded and work on similar issues to sort of lend our voice to a larger group pushing a certain, healthcare policy initiative that we think is important. An example of that is the Healthcare for All Virginians Coalition. was started in an effort to get Medicaid expansion to happen in Virginia. It took many years, but it did happen in 2018. And the reason Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation got involved with this is that we think that all Virginians should have access to affordable insurance so that they can get their cancer screenings, including mammogram screenings. So that's why we thought it was important. And we were excited to be part of that group and lend our voice to the larger push towards that. We also organize in the summer sometimes some meetings with our legislators. I should say that the General Assembly session is usually, it starts in January, usually wraps up by February, March. And so it's a short, amount of time to meet with them. And sometimes they're real busy and we can't always get meetings. And we've found that in the summertime, when they're not in session, they're often able to meet with us. We can talk to them about the upcoming session and also share with them information about the Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation that they can use with their own constituents. We also, I see on the screen, I forgot to mention, we provide testimony and give public comments on certain issues. To give an example of that, this year we joined a coalition that it wants to have paid family and medical leave in Virginia. And again, this is an issue that we're interested in because we hear often that, going through breast cancer is hard enough without having to worry about losing your job because you need to take time off. Many Virginians can't afford to take unpaid leave, which may be available to them. And so we really think that it would be great to have paid family and medical leave. And so during some of the committee meetings where this legislation was being heard, Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation provided testimony in support of that legislation. So that just gives you an idea. And to give some ideas of some of the successes that we've had over the years, Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation helped end drive-through mastectomies and get coverage for breast reconstructive surgery. We were the third state in the nation to have a breast density notification law passed, and some of you may have gotten that notification in the mail. I know I have, that lets you know that you have dense breast tissue and can talk with your doctor more about it. Another example is having oral chemotherapy drugs be covered by insurance at the same rate as IV chemotherapy. And then more recently, in the last few years, VBCF was one of the only cancer organizations in the state to support medical marijuana program being established in the state. We think that if this is a tool that some can use in their breast cancer treatment journey, we think it should be available to them. And then, as I mentioned before, Medicaid expansion was a great win. And since it has been expanded, 450,000 Virginians have gotten healthcare coverage because of it. So we think that's wonderful. So then turning to the national level, the Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation was a founding member of the National Breast Cancer Coalition, NBCC. And NBCC was started the same year as we were. And we align with a lot of their priorities in terms of legislation and policy. They have a similar mission in that their mission is to advocate and take action for ending breast cancer, which we agree with. And although we are not like a chapter or an affiliate officially, we do provide leadership in NBCC still. Marilyn is going to talk about this a little bit later, but she serves on the board both of VBCF and of the National Breast Cancer Coalition. And many of our board members have also served in other leadership roles as field coordinators and team leaders for when we go to Capitol Hill. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And Marilyn's going to talk about her experience with that in just a minute. So as I mentioned, one of the big things we do around the national level is participate in the National Breast Cancer Coalition's National Breast Cancer Lobby Day each year. Normally in pre-COVID times, we would send a bus of advocates up to the Capitol and meet with our legislators. Last year and this year, the Lobby Day will be virtual, and you'll see with this picture from one of our Zoom meetings with our representative, Morgan Griffith. We had some really great meetings on Zoom last year, and I know now people are sort of maybe zoomed out, but it was a great experience, and we hope that it will enable legislators to be more available to us. And it's an easy way to get involved, and especially not having to travel all the way to the Capitol. Hopefully we get more people involved. I should mention that it's similar to State Advocacy Day, where there's not an expectation that you're an expert on all the details of the issues. And in fact, NBCC has team leaders who really run the meetings with the legislators. And our role as volunteer advocates is to, again, share our stories and make connections with the legislators and let them know that, we're watching and that we want them to support certain policies and legislation. And again, similar, going together in groups, we sort of group people by who their legislator is, and you sort of go with them. And it's a great way to meet other advocates, and it's always exciting to be at the Capitol. Something else that we have a lot of volunteer advocates involved with is research advocacy. And Marilyn will talk a little more in depth about her experience with this again a little bit later, but there is a program called the Department of Defense Breast Cancer Research Program. And it is a really important and innovative breast cancer research program because it involves not only scientists, but also consumer reviewers, patient reviewers, and clinicians who have a chance to review proposals and have input on what should be funded, with an eye towards what is really going to make the most difference. To give you an idea, Virginia research institutions have received over $45 million in grants from this program since it began. The National Breast Cancer Coalition was the grassroots organization that got this program founded back in 92, 93. And so we continue to advocate for it every year on the Capitol, but we also have folks who participate as consumer reviewers. So, just a great program and another way to be involved with advocacy, and specifically research advocacy. And I think, some of the bullets mention some of the breakthrough treatments that have come about because of this breast cancer research program. And it's a very exciting program. And similar to at the state level, we monitor and support other issues related to breast cancer that may not have the word breast cancer in them. Larger healthcare issues such as access to affordable healthcare. The Lymphedema Treatment Act is something we've been following for years that would allow lymphedema compression items, medical device items to be covered by Medicaid. So things like that. And that's in addition to the priorities that the National Breast Cancer Coalition has every year. We're always behind those. And then we also watch for other things that might be related that we can support. And again, get involved with coalitions at the national level, sending letters of support, testimony when needed, or responses to items that pop up. And just a few examples of some success at the national level. The National Breast and Cervical Cancer Treatment Act was started, and it helps cover treatment and screening for low income and uninsured women. And this is a great program, and every year it needs to be funded. We always talk about that. And also, as I mentioned before, the Department of Defense Breast Cancer Research Program. Every year we have to ask for appropriation money for it to be funded. And since fiscal year 93, over $3.9 billion have been invested in breast cancer research because of that program. So that's great. So then in terms of, those are some of the things we work on. And if you're on this webinar, you're perhaps interested in getting more involved. So I wanted to step back and talk a little bit about why your voice matters in all of this. I'm sure we are all see pink everywhere around breast cancer, and especially in October. I do think that sometimes there's the idea that breast cancer awareness is high enough. People know about it. What else needs to be done? And I think, the reality is in Virginia, over 1,000 people lose their lives to breast cancer every year. Until breast cancer is preventable and is not happening, we still need to keep it on the forefront of public health issues. So that's why every year we need to talk with our legislators about what else can we do? What else needs to be funded? What else would be helpful for people who are experiencing breast cancer? And the reality is the legislative process is very slow sometimes. And so it takes many years sometimes to get something through Congress or through the General Assembly. And so we need to keep coming back every year and keep that pressure on. And your voice in particular as a volunteer advocate can make a difference, because you are the ones that hire the legislators. You're the voters. And as important as it is for VBCF as an organization to get behind issues, it can really make a difference for a legislator to hear directly from you as their constituent that voted for them, or even if you didn't vote for them, but you live in their district. You are their boss essentially, and they need to hear from you. They can make a connection with you in a different way than VBCF as an organization. So sort of in tandem with us, it's really useful to have personal stories and help make a difference in making breast cancer real and sharing your experience to sort of get the point across in a more personal way. And just the idea that there's power in numbers. The more people they hear from, the more likely they are to take action. And so it's always really useful to have the more the merrier. So, this is another sort of wanted to back up with, there are many ways to be an advocate. And you may be just beginning in thinking about this or have done some work with other organizations, but there's sort of levels of involvement. The first thing I think, if you're interested, a really easy way to just start getting used to sort of what kind of legislation we look at and the events that we have, is to subscribe to our VBCF Action Alert. And that is a, email as needed. I wouldn't say it's weekly, sometimes during the General Assembly session or when we are advocating on Capitol Hill, they may come more regularly to your inbox. But it is basically an email that gives you some background about the issue and what action we'd love for you to take. And that's the second bullet point, which is we give you the tools that you need to make a call, send an email, do both, that sort of thing. And we will, give you the talk, a script so that you could call the office and just read the script, and the legislator's office can mark down that you called in support or opposition to something. But we try to make it as easy as possible with, okay, go here, do this, have a good conversation and get off the phone, or send an email during this time frame. We also love, obviously, to have involvement in meetings, off session, that sort of thing. And, you know, more and more social media is becoming important. And so we're sort of getting our ducks in a row around how to help advocates, you know, do their tweeting and Facebooking and that sort of thing to get the messages out to their legislators. You know, if those things are interesting to you, then hopefully you'll also be interested in participating in person, hopefully sometime soon, with our breast cancer state or national advocacy days. And, you know, it's always a great way to meet other advocates and be, you know, in community with others who've experienced similar things and have similar interests. And, you know, again, this year for National Advocacy Day, it's going to be virtual again. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but it's also a really easy way to try it out with us. You know, you don't have to travel or commit, you know, that travel time and that sort of thing. And then finally, I want to mention that we have a advocacy scholarship that was established in honor of Karen Decker-Noss, who was a VBCF president, and she unfortunately lost her battle with breast cancer in 2008. She was an amazing advocate, and so we established the scholarship in her honor. And so volunteers can apply to receive money to do extra higher level advocacy training. An example of that is that the National Breast Cancer Coalition has something called Project LEAD, which is a intensive scientific focused week-long conference training that you can go to and get amazing background on the science of breast cancer so that you can advocate on those specific issues. And that's something that Marilyn has done and can share a little bit more about in just a minute. So I think with that, I'm going to turn it over to Marilyn. Again, she's a wonderful advocate leader, and I thought it would be great for everyone to hear from her about her experience and how she got involved. And yeah, so I'll turn it over to you, Marilyn.
Okay, thanks, Krista. So yeah, so when I was diagnosed, I clearly knew a lot about breast cancer, or so I thought, but not at all what you learn and what really sinks in when you're the one who actually is told that you have breast cancer. And as I was going through the process, going through my treatment, I knew almost immediately that I wanted to become an advocate. I wanted to become involved in some way. I wasn't really sure what that would look like. My surgeon is very involved with breast cancer, with the Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation. And he said to me, once you're through your treatment, I have something I want to introduce you to. I think you might be great at it. So long story short, I did attend some of the meetings that I think Kirsta was running some of them, and some of the education via conference call. And when the opportunity presented itself to actually go to, I think my first opportunity probably was the local advocacy day down at the General Assembly. And you wouldn't have any idea the adrenaline rush that you get knowing that you have an opportunity to meet with legislators. Now, as Kirsta mentioned, you do not have to be an expert. They don't really want to know about the science of breast cancer. They want to know what your experience is, whether it's yours personally or a family member's, but that's what matters to them. And it really does make a difference that you are their constituent. So I found that out. I sort of gotten bit, if you will, by the advocacy day bug. And when the opportunity presented itself to go to DC for National Lobby Day, I said, sure, I'm down, let's meet. I hopped on the bus. We drove to DC, and I'd lived in DC for a long time. So, and had spent a little bit of time on Capitol Hill, but not much. But that takes it to even another level because it's such an iconic place, and it's where all the laws for our country are made, right? It was a great opportunity. I think one of these photos, the one in the middle, was from 2017, and that might have been my first one. And we were like little kids, if you will, looking at the names of the plaques of the legislators on the walls. But what really made a difference, and we don't have a photograph of it, was actually sitting down with, in some cases, the legislators, but more often than not, you actually have an opportunity to sit down with their legislative aide, the aide that is assigned to that legislator, whose responsibility it is to know about the health-related legislation or issues or priorities that are coming their way. And in our case, I can't remember who our person was. Katie, it might have been, excuse me, it might have actually been Katie, but the field coordinator from Virginia was the person leading the discussion. And that person's responsibility is to know the technical information, if you will, the bill number or the priority that we are there to talk about. And then they literally turn to the advocates in the room, if you've agreed to do so, to ask, what is your story? So that they have a face and they kind of really have a better understanding of how breast cancer affects each and every one of us. As Kirsten mentioned, pink is everywhere. And I think at this stage in the game, everybody is pretty aware of breast cancer. So now it's our responsibility to help them understand, what do we need them to do for us to go to the next level? So that was 2017. Following that advocacy day, I think someone suggested to me that I participate in Project Lead, which is a scientific class. It's a week-long class, very, very intense, very, very worth it, I must say, where you learn about the science of breast cancer. You really get into the nitty-gritty. You have some pretty lengthy days actually studying and being in work groups to make sure that you come away from it with a foundation that allows you to subsequently participate in all kinds of other opportunities, such as being able to be an advocate on a research panel where you have equal status with research scientists. Again, could not have imagined it back in 2014 when I was diagnosed, but I got the opportunity to attend Project Lead in 2018. I received a NOS scholarship from VBCF to help me with that opportunity. And in so, excuse me, in so doing, I came away with knowledge that allowed me subsequently in 2019 and in 2020 to participate as an advocate on two different panels, one in 2019 in person, and last year virtually, with scientists from all over the country, where we individually have the opportunity, once you are assigned, to review proposals for research that we hope will make a big difference. It's not we're not looking for small measures or small incremental improvements in breast cancer science. We're looking for the kinds of research or the kinds of treatment programs that will come out of it that's going to make a big difference in the lives of people who are living with breast cancer. So those photographs represent both the Lobby Day in 2017, 2018 MBCC Leadership Summit, and then subsequently in July, Project Lead. Do you want to go to the next slide, Kirsten? Mm-hmm. I don't think I can. Yeah. So the Leadership Summit, Kirsten mentioned it, and it's again a big culmination for me. It's not only an opportunity for us as a group from Virginia to go to DC to represent our state and the advocates or the breast cancer patients in our state, but it is an opportunity for us to learn. The summit is a conference designed to educate and provide information about the priorities that overall the National Breast Cancer Coalition has that we take to Capitol Hill. In the summit itself, this year it's 3 days, and it's a virtual summit. The photograph you see on the picture is a screenshot from some of the sessions that I attended last year. Last year, we thought it was a good idea. I don't know why exactly, but we thought it was a good idea to spread it out over 4 weeks. And again, we thought, it's a lot of information, it's intense, but it was a lot of time on everyone's part. I was a part of the planning committee last year as well as I am this year. And this year we realized that was way too much, a lot of work on everybody's part. But we're doing almost really the same amount of information, almost as if we were in person for 3 days. So we're doing it starting on May 13th, which is a Thursday. It runs through Saturday, May 15th. And then on the 17th, we actually have the National Lobby Day. So the summit brings together scientists from all over the country. It brings together advocates from all over the country. And the purpose of the discussion is to share the newest, most important information that relates to breast cancer. That could be treatment, it could be therapies, it could be just where's the conversation now, and how does what's going on in the political climate, because each year, every 4 years, we have a different administration, and we really need to understand how can we be the most effective to reach those legislators.
Marilyn, did you mention that the Virginia Breast Cancer Foundation has scholarship money available, that if anyone would like to attend this year, we can help cover your registration to attend? So
I did not. You had mentioned it earlier, but yeah. And by the way, it's a great way to take advantage of learning. So what would it look like? I guess that's a question you might have. What would it look like if you were attending this virtually? So the calendar for the summit is online already. If you go to nationalbreastcancercoalition.com and go to the summit banner, you will be able to pull up what the schedule looks like. And essentially, it's going to be done in a webinar format with some opportunities for breakout sessions. So if we were live, what we would do is we would go into a main room for the main plenary session, where you talk about probably the most prominent topic that's current right now. And from there, the breakout sessions are smaller groups with a speaker, with the opportunity, very similar to any other Zoom meeting you might have attended if you've had the opportunity to do them, and I'm sure you have. It'll give you the opportunity to enter questions if you like. This year's summit, though, I think is going to be even more interactive. I think there are going to be some even smaller sessions. So what I found last year, I thought I knew a lot, and I don't by any means think that I'm an expert, but I learned a great deal in the breakout sessions because some of the advocates who participated have been survivors and advocates for over 20 years. So when it goes back that far, you really have a lot of historical information that feeds into why things are being done the way they are, and or why things should be done differently because they've been done the same way for so long. We really need to take things to the next level. So I think you'll find that to be helpful. So if anyone who's listening, you raised your hand to say you're interested in the advocacy program that VBCF has. And if you're interested in doing so, the NOS scholarship that VBCF will make available to you is an excellent, excellent way for you to do that. Okay. So to that end, who wants to join me for this year's summit? And after the summit, you don't have to all raise your hands at once. We can't actually see them. I'm teasing. The virtual lobby day is the culmination of the summit. It's the summit includes the information about breast cancer, but it also covers in some detail the priorities for the National Breast Cancer Coalition. As Kirsten mentioned before, the National Breast Cancer Coalition is the organization, grassroots organization, made up of a lot of grassroots organizations from around the country in every state, in most states, is the organization that really got the Department of Defense Breast Cancer Research Program started. And that program, as Kirsten shared with you, has made a big difference because there have been breakthroughs in the science that is now being used by people who have breast cancer, who've been diagnosed with breast cancer. It's a big part of their treatment. This year, NBCC, like several years in the past, our priorities, the organization's priorities are the Metastatic Breast Cancer Access to Care Act, as well as always is going to be making sure that the funding for the Department of Defense Breast Cancer Research Program stays intact. The funding dollar amount is at $150 million this year. It's been introduced in the Senate. It has not yet been introduced in the House, but we expect that to happen in the next couple of weeks. That's an interesting process, what goes on. I'm no expert in it. I am better with it. The more we talk about it leading up to the summit, the more we talk about it coming out of the summit. The bottom line is that it's a process that it's important that whatever we take to Congress, that it gets bipartisan support. Our goal is not to be a partisan organization. While there might be some leanings one way or the other, the goal is really to make sure that the support we get is bipartisan. Breast cancer is not a partisan disease. It does not care what party you're in. It does not care where you live. It doesn't care how much money you have. If you're going to get it, you're going to get it. So if there's a way for us to make a difference with the work that we do with legislators through our advocacy, you want to be a part of it. And so how Lobby Day works, Kirsten mentioned a little bit, when we're in person, we go physically to the legislators' offices. Kirsta and some of the other members of the advocacy committee, we've reached out to the legislators to schedule time, I say legislators, to their legislative aide, or in some cases their scheduler, to schedule time with them, to share with them what these priorities are. They know the drill. I will also say the National Breast Cancer Coalition has an incredible reputation on Capitol Hill, an absolutely incredible reputation that goes back many, many administrations, all the way to presidents in the administrations. And so to that end, we generally will get an appointment if we ask for one. The question becomes when and what time, but we will generally get it if we ask for it. So knowing that we are representing both the state of Virginia's constituents, as well as the National Breast Cancer Coalition, makes a huge difference. When that happens and we have the appointment on the morning of or day of, we get onto a call, as you can see us here. I don't know who that was. Kirsten, who was that?
That was Representative Jennifer Wexton that we met with last year. Yes.
Okay, got it. So yeah, so we got on the call. Either myself or another one of our advocates and board members, Jessica Ramirez, take the lead in actually taking them through what our priorities are, what the purpose of the call is, what our priorities are. Here's what we want. This is what the ask is. So we take care of that part. And then we turn to, our advocates, the folks you see on the screen, to ask, if people would like to have something to say. We ask you, and we've already prepared in advance, who might want to share their story. We primarily focus on, if we're doing a meeting with Jennifer Wexton, we want to focus on who on the call is one of her constituents. Now, we don't always have someone who is, but that's what we work to do because it makes a difference. They literally will pay way more attention to a constituent than they would to Jessica or myself. So that's how that process works. So it's exhilarating. It feels great. I will also say that with social media, which we weren't doing as much on the front end, or I wasn't doing as much on the front end when I first joined, but because social media goes straight to that constituent, whether they manage the account or not, it goes straight to that constituent. So I do tweet directly to, Tim Kaine if I want to say something. Now, he doesn't always come back. I will also retweet if they acknowledge there's something going on that has to do with healthcare. I will retweet their tweet, and oftentimes they will come back and say thank you. So just know that social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or even Instagram, which I haven't done a lot with from an advocacy perspective, just know that it does make a difference. So it's a combination of all of these things that gives us the real world opportunity to make a difference. And if you want to make a difference as an advocate, this is the place to be.
Thank you, Marilyn. That was wonderful to hear. And you know, hopefully that gives you a flavor of what it's like to get involved if you aren't already. And I know we've talked a lot and would love to answer some questions. We have a few minutes, and I do see that a few people have raised their hands. If you can, in the Q&A box, type your question. That's going to be the easiest way for us to get your questions. I'll have to figure out what I do with a raised hand. I don't really quite know. Hopefully you can see the Q&A box and can type a quick question in there. We can be patient. And I will also sort of figure, you know, see if I can figure out a different way to do that. But maybe to get us started, Marilyn, you know, what if someone feels like, well, my legislator is always supportive of good stuff, so why do I need to talk to them? Because I know they're gonna agree, or, you know, or whatever, or they feel that way. Why is it still important?
It's still important because women are dying still every day from breast cancer. So if you understand, or I'm going to use myself, my sense of urgency is that women are dying every day from breast cancer. And until there is a way for, if there's a vaccine that's developed, if there's a treatment that will prevent people who are metastatic from advancing to, you know, the worst stages of metastasis that causes them to pass away, we still got a lot of work to do. So it's that sense of urgency. So even though, and I'll use one of our legislators, Donald McKeechan. He always supports everything that we do, and it's great that he does. But it's also important for us, for myself, to reach out to say thank you to him, even though we know he's always going to do it. Why? Because who doesn't want to be thanked, right? And I don't think any of us want to be in a situation where we're always going to them asking for something, rather than just acknowledging that they've always supported and that we appreciate that support. So that's the reason you always want to reach out and make sure that your legislator knows it's still important, and we really appreciate it, and we appreciate it even more. And more importantly, I have asked, would you mind talking to, you know, do you have a problem talking with some of your other colleagues about what we're doing? They have not yet signed on. And it did make a difference last year.
Right.
It really did.
That's great. We have a question from Eunice. Hi, Eunice. And her question, some others might have the same question, that if you cannot attend the summit as it's happening, will there be an opportunity to hear the sessions afterwards? And my understanding is that yes, the sessions will be recorded, and that you know, if you register, there will be an opportunity for you to hear them at another time, not real time. Similar to this webinar is being recorded, and we're going to have it up on our website. I don't know exactly how it will work, but that was also the case last year. I attended the summit last year, and there were a few sessions I couldn't make, but then I went back and listened to them. So I definitely think it's worth registering and, you know, be able to hear some of the ones you can in real time and do some of the recording. I think that is the positive now of the Zoomness of our world.
The expectation is obviously that you attend as many as you can real time, but that's not going to be the case for everybody, right? And so you attend what you can real time, and those that you cannot, you will be able to watch those back later, as long as you've registered.
Yeah, right. And as a follow-up to this webinar, I'll send out sort of that registration information and sort of reach out to everyone that's been on the call, you know, just so that you have all the information available. Eunice also asked, Eunice is a graduate of Project Lead and wants to get back involved in the peer review process. So Eunice, I'll follow up with you because that sounds wonderful. So I'll follow up with you separately offline. You know, another question, Marilyn, that I've heard advocates ask me before as well is, you know, there's a certain, let's say the issue around, about metastatic breast cancer. And what if the advocate feels like, well, I don't have metastatic breast cancer. So is my story going to be impactful because I'm not, the issue at hand is not directly personally related? I'd love to hear what you would say. I know what I would say to that, but I'm sure you have a thought about what you would say as well.
Sure. Well, that's my situation. I was diagnosed with early stage breast cancer, so I'm not metastatic, but I know a number of people who are. More importantly, there's no guarantee that one day I won't be. So, breast cancer is, if any of you, I don't know what your connection to breast cancer is. Breast cancer is one of those diseases, cancer in general, where you're diagnosed at an early stage. It is dealt with, however it's dealt with, but because there isn't an intervention to date that will guarantee that you will not get another diagnosis and be diagnosed at a later stage, later in life, it's important that we continue to work toward that, right? Work toward making sure and advocating for ways to make sure people who are metastatic don't have to succumb to the disease so early in life. So primarily, that's how I would handle it, Kirsta. I'm not sure. I mean, there are obviously lots of different ways to respond to it, but I feel as strongly about it as if I actually had it myself.
Right.
And I also am now, because of my advocacy work and the training and a lot of the work that I've done in this space, I know so many people who are metastatic. So it does feel personal.
Right.
At this point in time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, in some of the other issues that we've worked on, we, VBCF, often will give talking points to help you think about how there's a connection, because there are some issues that we work on that don't have, like I said before, the word breast cancer in them. But for instance, paid family and medical leave. I've spoken with advocates and other board members who actually were fortunate enough to have paid leave when they were going through breast cancer. And they said,
wow.
Then I don't have anything to offer. But what they have to offer is the idea of, what would I have done if I didn't have that leave?
Exactly.
And in one of our board members' case, she said, she was the person that carried the health insurance for her whole family. So
wow.
if she had had to quit her job, the whole family would have lost their health insurance. So, there are ways that we try to help people make the connection so that they know why these issues are important for, again, sometimes the issues are specifically important to breast cancer patients. Sometimes they're broader in terms of healthcare policy in general, cancer patients in general. And unfortunately, so many of us are touched by breast cancer and cancer in general in our lives. And so that focus can be broad, and VBCF wants to be behind any kinds of health policy that will help people experiencing cancer, breast cancer. Another question that I know I've had in the past as well is that can you, if you can't attend the summit, can you just participate in Lobby Day? And the answer is yes. You can register with me and then also with NBCC to just participate in Lobby Day. The expectation there, though, is that there is a Lobby Day briefing that will happen May 17th, which is the day before Lobby Day. That's important to attend so that you sort of have the general idea. And then as a state delegation, Marilyn and I and the other NBCC team leaders will have a state delegation meeting prior to Lobby Day, again, just to get everybody on the same page and sort of, logistically how the meetings are going to work. But yes, we certainly welcome anyone to participate. And like I said, I think so in some ways, this virtual environment is an easy way to get involved without a whole bunch of time commitment in the same way that it used to be. We used to be on the bus at 7:30 in the morning and not get back till later. And although it was super fun to all be together, this is a much simpler way. So really would welcome anyone's participation. Again, in a follow-up email, I will send some of the links and my contact information is here. I'm happy to answer other questions via email or give me a call. Happy to do that. I don't see any other questions. I'm going to make sure I don't see a hand raised. No hands raised. So I think unless there are other questions, I think we'll wrap it up. But really do welcome you to reach out, and I hope this is giving you a good overview of what we do in terms of advocacy, and just happy to have your interest, and hopefully you'll choose to get more involved. So, and thank you, Marilyn, for making the time to be on.
Thank you, Krista.
I think it's been great. So thank you to everybody and have a great afternoon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.